I don't want to mess it up
Trying
here.
to remember it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember how I get into it, because it's like it's like a 64-bar verse. But I say, it ain't a game, stay in your lane, and you can spit to the grave. Ironically, this new millennium is living in change, a culture borrowed for the mighty dollar. Isn't it strange? Followed by the kids of whitey collar mimic this way. Can't disagree. In '93, that kid was me, but I made a plea to reach out to the streets in need for feeling its pain.
All right.
It used to be an issue, you know. I remember there was a friend of mine right from here, from Dorchester, and I remember him sitting me down, and we were out at my mother's house. So I grew up in the western suburbs, going towards kind of near where you're at, and I remember he sat me down. We're out there. My mom lives in a, you know, in a fairly quiet neighborhood out in the woods. And he was like, you know what, you grew up here and there's no way you'll ever be relevant. And he looked me in the eye and told me that. He's like, you'll never be relevant as hard as you try.
Wow.
And I kind of let it fuel me. I was like, you know what, man, you're wrong. So I can be relevant and I will be relevant.
Okay.
And this was a good, you know, 10 years ago that he did that. And he was envious of the fact that I was ambitious. And and he isn't doing anything now. But I'm worried about that, but you know, but the funny enough, you know, part of that was because, you know, because of my skin color and because of where I grew up in the suburbs and stuff, and he was just like, there's no way you're gonna be able to reach these kids.
That's right.
And it's funny because the playing field on a lot of levels has changed. I don't want to call it a playing field, but the rap crowd even has changed.
That's right. That's
you know,
right.
It's a much broader crowd now.
True, very true.
Something I've learned, and I've learned this even in when I do outreach, and in the kids that that I minister to. Because none of the kids I minister to in my church look anything like me, but I've always have to remind myself that I don't expect them to put me in a category, so I won't put them in one either.
Right.
You know,
That's
I won't assume anything about them, and they won't assume anything about me. And I think that you have to view your ministry that way. I'm not making any assumptions about you. I agree. I appreciate if you would do the same with me, and let's just build up in Christ.
That's
you know.
That's true.
So yeah.
I think a lot of the times we forget that it's not, we're just a vessel that's being used. It's not about the person. It's about the Holy Spirit. That's in that person that's going to do the drawing or the impacting to the crowd, to the listeners. So a lot of the times we need to, you know, shake that off, all these preconceived notions of ourselves. Because I guess it is human to look at someone and build up all those things, but as Christians, I think we should have higher expectations for ourselves.
Well, I think if something I always come back to that someone told me previously, it was funny because it was one of my youth group kids told me this, and he'd grown up, you know, his mother abandoned him, his father had abandoned him, he grew up in foster care, you know, his mom was addicted to drugs his whole entire life. So he'd taken some bruises and bumps, and he looked me in the eye and he was like, honestly, man, if you're really going to do this is a kid saying this to me. He said, if you're going to do this, you really need to start believing it. Because if you don't believe it, they're not going to believe it either. You know, I took that with me when I was maybe 19. This kid said this to me. He was like a 15, 14-year-old. He was like, if you don't believe it, they're not going to either. So you better start believing if you want to make something happen. And I've taken that with me. If you believe it, and you have a message to bring, they will listen. You know.
All right.
So yeah.
Okay. So just like I had asked Spit his general thoughts on the state of hip hop as it is, let's say gospel rap, holy hip hop, as it is right now. What's your overall feeling on it right now? Yeah,
I've just started writing a column for Rapzilla.com, and
what was that website?
Rapzilla.com.
Okay.
Yeah, RAPZILLA.com. And on that website, my first article, I just sent in, you know, submitted my first article. It's going to post next week, and in that article, I wrote, please, as we continue and I start posting, you know, having articles posted every week, please, I'm asking you not to place me into a category.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, what I think that some people have done with this kind of niche of Christian rap music is there's people who have kind of played into and fueled division. And from the jump, I said, listen, I'd appreciate it if, based on previous affiliations, based on present affiliations, I would appreciate if you not place me into a left side or a right side, because I'm not in a camp like that, you know. And even with this new record, I didn't put any cameos on it on purpose, because I didn't want people pigeonholing me. Because I believe that if we are all going to win souls for Christ, then we need to be on the same team.
So you think, unfortunately, right now there's a quote-unquote beefing between a couple of artists out there?
Well, I think, here's what I think. I think that the fans are the ones that create the problem more than the artists. I think fans, for some reason, I think it's our nature to enjoy controversy. I think if you turn the TV on, you see controversy, People Magazine, all these, you know, there's so much gossip columns and things like that, and I think Christians are susceptible and vulnerable to that as well. And I think that the fans are the ones causing more problems than anybody, because they start little rumors, or they say this, this artist said this about this. And the reality is, then you get all of those artists in the same room, like you go to a Flavor Fest. You know, Flavor Fest is in Tampa every year, and everyone's fine. Everyone gets along just fine. There's no beef at all. It's people causing rumors. Now, granted, sometimes, you know, there's definitely different theologies and philosophies on how you're supposed to present yourself musically, and what's appropriate and what's biblically
sound or not.
Yes, sound, and how's your doctrine, etc. I respect that. If, you know, if an ambassador has a conviction about how he's supposed to write his music, I respect that. If God put that on his heart, good. But if, you know, if a Seb Static, who would be kind of placed in a different category, is a little bit more maybe poetic with how he expresses God in his music, if he feels compelled to express it that way, as long as he's being honest with himself and what God is asking to do and how he's supposed to be doing it. So how have you found that you've handled disagreements anytime you've run into, you might not agree with the message that this artist is saying, or you have, how have you handled that in the past? I confronted someone recently because there's an artist that I know that ended up signing he's signing to a mainstream label, and the problem, and it wasn't a beef, it was confronting somebody who's an acquaintance of mine. I felt compelled to call him and have a conversation with him, because I heard a song that he made that was blatantly, just blatantly would cause any 13, 14-year-old to slip up. You know, it was completely out of line in regards to, you know, innuendos and things like that. That's why I have a problem. If you're claiming to be a Christian, whether or not you're preaching in your music, or whether or not you're a Christian person who raps, you still need to be consistent with your beliefs and your
consistency
and what comes out of your mouth. And if there's any paradox in there, it's going to cause someone to stumble and fall. You know,
so there's a way to do it in love, basically.
Absolutely. And he received even though he didn't agree with me, he received it because he knew my intentions. You know, so.
All right. So where can our viewers at home, you know, get some more information about you, see when you have shows around?
BobbyBishop.com.
Keep tabs on you.
BobbyBishop.com is the best place. I don't have a Twitter yet, but
Facebook?
I have a Facebook. You can search me on Facebook. I have a Reverb Nation. I have a MySpace. I have all that stuff. So.
All right. And you said, when is the album slated to be released?
It's an interesting story. It's a long one. The record's done. It's been submitted. It's coming out through Chosen Records, through Universal. Universal's the distributor. Like I said, it's been submitted to Universal, but it looks like right now we're going to do retail in June. So between now and June, we are going to do like a pre-release on iTunes. So we'll probably post like a 3-song EP on iTunes within a couple months, and then the full length will drop in June.
All right, cool. So look out for the album from Bobby Bishop, Everyday Man, right? That's it? So we thank you for stopping by, and we hope we get a chance. I know you're a busy man. You have the family, you have a social work and all of that stuff, but it would be great if we can have you back here.
I'd love to come back
in the future.
I'd love to. Thank you.
All right, the producer's marking that down in the back.
I'll come.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
You've been watching The Green Room with our brother Bobby Bishop in the house. We thank him for stopping by.
It's good to be here.
And we hope we have him sometime in the future.
I'll be here.
So y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Cut to this video. Stay tuned.